Last Count Porla, I don't think anyone disagrees with the problems that we're facing in terms of the planet and how we interact in our daily lives with the planet and what we need to do to make life better and more sustainable. But I think that a lot of the rhetoric and the commentary around this particular proposal, particularly from the government side, is to placate the Greens. That's my honest opinion. And it's not matching the reality of life. So here's the reality that I face every day in my constituency. If you take farming and the suckler cow issue, there are many families involved in that activity. So how do you have a just transition that moves that family and that farming family from one activity to the other? There's no discussion about that. If we're building a new plant, cheese plant in South Kilkenny, and we're encouraging people to have the supply chain ready for that, how do you change them midstream? And this is not a decision that farmers made. This is a decision that government made. They decided that they wanted to increase the herd, and they decided that this was a good thing for the economy. So how are you going to fund that just transition from moving them from one activity to the other? Peat and forestry were mentioned. I mean, we must be the laughing stock of Europe that we would stop this activity around peat and then start to import peat. And the same way with timber. What's happening in the Department of Agriculture that has caused such a horrific collapse of the process around licences of one kind and another, with no real political response? And the consequence of that is importing more timber from abroad, burning more diesel, you know, all of that it entails and the damage it does to the climate. So what are the practical steps being taken to rectify that for the world that we live in? Beef farmers are being accused of all sorts of things, but yet we're being asked, you know, to support beef farmers. They're being encouraged to expand. We have a big beef market abroad for the type of beef that we produce. So are we telling them to stop? Where is the just transition there from one activity to the other? If you look at the transport business, you can't buy an electric truck unless you have a fantastic amount of money. They're not available, and the servicing of those trucks is a very complicated matter. So if you were to encourage them to buy the trucks, and if the money was within the transport sector, that cost is simply going to be passed on the products and services that the truck operator, transport companies run up. So the person at the end of the queue here is going to pay again. So what's being done by government to make sure that there is a just transition there from the transport company to an electric transport company? And who's going to save the consumer in all of this? So I'm not against what we're talking about here. What I am against is the fact that government seem to think that somebody else is going to pick up the tab on the agenda that they have set and are now about to try and change dramatically, or have solutions, dramatically. Support the transport sector to make that just transition. Invest in them. Invest in farming to get them to the point where you want to get them to. Not one shilling do I see in the just transition in the Midlands. Now, the bus and coach operators that bring in visitors here and travel all over the country, some based in my own constituency, they made the effort and couldn't get the vehicles. They couldn't afford the vehicles. So then they decided what they were going to do was they're going to change the tyres and have them proper green type of tyres. And guess what? They wear quicker, they cost more, and you'll have to use 2 of them to the standard tyre. So how are you going to pay for that just transition? Or do you expect the businesses to pay for it? Now, fair enough if you do. But at the end of the day, it's the consumer that's going to pay for it. So just transition in terms of those that are in need the most in our society. Leo says increase the pension by €5. The parliamentary Fine Gael party say increase the pension by €10. And I would say you have to increase it by €20 and tell them that they're going to get €20 next year and €20 the year after, because they are going to be swamped in costs. And the other issue is we want to buy our electricity from France, buy it from Wales, so we're happy to take nuclear electricity from them, but we're not prepared to discuss it here. And that is the problem with the alternatives. There are real alternatives. There are real cost solutions to all of this. But the government is supposed to lead it. Europe is supposed to lead it. And they're not. They're not. So therefore, we have to lead by example, and we have to try through financing, bringing those people with us to sustain their businesses, to keep the jobs that they have, and to ensure that we reach some sort of targets. But please don't be daft with your targets. And please don't be daft in terms of how you treat businesses that are struggling even at present. And that is the contribution that I will make within my own parliamentary party to change the course of the nonsensical course that they're embarked upon right now.